Tom Holmes, I live in Hyannis. So I say that was one thing being born here, and which has made it all right. And just I lived in Hyannis all my life, and I know we had a lot of good memories from just around this neighborhood here, across the street where the ballparks used to be, before they built Old Colony Boulevard. There was a big hole there. We used to call it the normal school field. You'd drive down there. And the old Washington building that was the convenience stockroom on the other side of the railroad tracks, they had a loading dock. So when they did have baseball games, you'd sit on that and watch the games. And down back there, if there's a stone wall and there's water there, it's fresh water. And when I was a kid, we used to go fishing for brown trout. And then me, Bobby Jones, and a few other guys from Hyannis there. But all around here, we used to have a lot of fun. And then you could do a lot of things. Play baseball. We used to play baseball. In fact, the baseball, the Little League and everything was more or less started down that hole there. And they built the Little League field, Bassett Lane there. But yeah, baseball and just roaming around Hyannis. I mean, you could walk down Main Street in Hyannis and go into like Poyon's Bakery, and Clovis would be baking something and show you how to make donuts, and you either hang around there and you go in the old league, sit there and read, what do you call it, comic books. And you just walk down Main Street, you go into different stores, and they all knew who you were. And or go down by the railroad tracks, there used to be the grain store. Well, Clovis was Rennie's brother, and Rennie owned a bakery. They all come down from New Bedford years ago. And they had Clovis used to work his butt off, and then Marcel worked there too. He says I was the guy to put the holes in the donuts. But his father was always involved in stuff. And you go down south, he'd started selling real estate, and finally he figured out you could sell one house and get just as much as you did for a whole week's pay. So they worked for what they got. Yeah. And I don't know, he just took advantage of the times there, really. Yeah. But Clovis, he was a good guy. They lived up across from the way the bank is. Well, Clovis lived on one corner and Rennie lived on the other corner. In fact, that picture in the paper that they sent around about when the train came in the 1950s there, there was a picture of Rennie Poyont, Alan Jones, Norman Cook. Everybody was on the Hyannis Board of Trade that brought that to there. There was they did, so Rennie, the Poyonts did a lot from Main Street. The Mayflower and the restaurant there was two Mayflowers, a new Mayflower and the old Mayflower, and a Mayflower tap room, which was right across the street anyway. And George Garufas was a big Greek in town. Nobody knew who he was. In fact, his daughter, Calliope, still owned all that property. But you wouldn't see some of the stuff on Main Street now. They were still running things. They were all a tight bunch. And the Jewish people there, they're all like the Brazilians are doing now, all stick together, you know. But you go in the old Mayflower, the women always had nice white uniforms, all red robes there, you know. And only trouble with the Mayflower, if you had to use the men's room, you had to slide downstairs, get all the grease and stuff upstairs and come back up again. It was, I think it was open 24 hours a day, more or less. And like all the street people they have around today, we always had street people, but they were always off the street. They'd be in there washing dishes, parking lot attendants. I forget who used to, down by the old railroad tracks there, where the taxi stand was. But they're always off the street then. But I think Chief Nightingale used to go on the parking lot attendants.
Barnstable.
My favorite place is going to sound kind of strange. Is probably Oak Grove Cemetery. Not because part of my family, my wife's buried there, but I'm in there every day, and you walk around there, it's quiet, and it's I've been doing the flags in there for the last 35 years, and you see all your friends or enemies or whatever you want to call them, and you walk around there. and just thinking of people there, you know, and like Frank Mackey, when he did the grave digging all by hand there, I'd be in there and we'd get talking. He says, "See that guy over there? He's buried there." I said, "Yeah." "Well, he's got his two wives. He's buried in between his two wives." I said, "Oh, that's nice." He said, "Yeah, one's there and the other one's there, and he's buried there, but he's facing his first wife because he liked it better than his second wife." Stuff like that. And you walk around here, it's kind of interesting, you know, and it's quiet. If you don't get hit by a golf ball. I was down there the other day, guy down there with a golf club, you know, and people jog and stuff, plus other actions going on down there, but it's peaceful, it's nice. It changed overnight, yeah. I mean, you could walk around Hyannisport and with nothing over there, really, even though the Kennedys were there. And they all go to church. You see them in church on Sunday. And even when he was a senator, they'd be in church, and nobody thought too much of him, you know. And then his father would come in, he liked to be called the ambassador. You know. He didn't like to be called Mr. Kennedy, he wanted to be called the ambassador. That's what you make him happy, you know. But even on the skating, when they first built the skating rink, I was sitting, as you walk in there, they used to have the bleachers. Right behind you, I think they had where they rented the skates. Anyway, I was sitting there, and Jack Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy were sitting next to me, and we had about 3 or 4 things up there so you could see over the boards. And we're just watching people skating around. It's like Rockefeller Center then, that's what it was built like, you know. But anyway, he says to me, "Hey, Holmes," I said, "What?" He says, "They want to put a roof on this." I said, "That's what I hear." He said, "What do you think of that?" I said, "I know, it'll be year-round skating." He said, "But if they do that," he says, "hockey's going to push everybody right out of here." It is, right? But it was good for the town. Like Phil Scudder there said, he played hockey, a lot of other people did.
A lot of people did.
And kept them off the streets and,
sure.
Yeah, made their parents broke, buying them equipment. But even the Kennedys now, we used to see them in church. And they were regular people, you know, until he got president and everything changed. Like when he got to be president, I was down East Beach here, Eugenia's Beach here now, and me and Scuppy Crow was out there co-hogging. And the Secret Service guy waved and said, come here, you guys can't be here." And Scuppy would say, "Why's that?" "Because the president's here." "Well, he ain't here." Anyway, he said, "I ain't leaving." So the Secret Service guy waited out there. I said, "Please." Well, I got my basket in here. I was like, "Okay," took off. And I remember Scuppy saying to the guy, "Oh, you're for the Secret Service. Ain't no secret no more, because you told me we were." Well, you know one of the characters too, you know? Yeah. He worked with Norris. I had a paper route for about 5 years when I was about 8 years old. So it was about during the 50s there. And I probably can tell you more about the Korean War and how many times Elizabeth Taylor's been married than anybody else than I have. Because it was on the front page there.
You actually read the paper before you
Yeah,
delivered it?
yeah. Because you walk your carry. I had 35. I started like at where the skating rink is now, and did come up around Winter Street. And Winter Street used to be a beautiful street there. And I had 35 customers. I ended up at the where Drew's Express there, which was Baxter's, when they moved right on the corner of where the Hess place is there. Yeah. And all the O'Neills. You know, Kevin O'Neill's mother and her aunts there, and the other one that lived out back there, and the Retts. So it was all families, all Irish. It was an Irish town. They used to call all the Irish people there. Well, I bought my house. Each one of my house, so they all live next door to me. It's one of the main reasons, I guess. Plus, my daughter moved back from when her husband started going retire from the Navy, and she lives in her grandfather's house, which is, so let's see, about 6 generations of the same family living in that house. And then my oldest daughter lives in a house that I own, and my son lives down the street there with his gang there. So they're all on the same street. Yeah, Laurie's got 3 little girls there. They're nice, they're pleasant. And the other, Tommy's 2 kids are a boy and a girl. One of them goes to college, and Michael's working for his father. So, yeah, they're around. just try to find a cold beer on a Sunday. You got to keep your back door locked, 'cause everybody walks in the back door and out the front door. Well, I graduated in 1960, so that's when I went to the old high school. In fact, I'm probably one of the few people that went to the training school over here. Then we moved over to the high school, and junior high was the 7 through 12 at the time. So I went to 7th, 8th, and 9th grade in the old high school. Then we moved up to West Main Street. And then I went to the elementary school when we moved from here. In fact, in February, I think when I was in the 2nd grade, Johnny Linehan comes in and says, everybody pack up their books. We're going to the new school. There was no bus. We walked down Main Street with our books and everything over to the new school there.
Tell us about John Linehan as a principal.
He was a good principal. I think if you ask anybody that ever had him, they respect him. They even though he would bounce you off the wall once in a while, but you deserved it. You know,
He did have that reputation, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was it true?
Yeah. I tried to get the one of the schools in Austral, the new schools there when they built them, named after him. So I see Jane Esbaum, and I said what I wanted. And she says, well, I go to the school committee. So we went in front of the school committee. I forgot who was there. He says, well, he's not dead yet. I said, what's that got to do with anything, you know? I said, then they said, well, I don't know. We don't name schools after people, you know? So they thought about it. So they named, I think, the gym after him, and the library is after Paul Bell, either the other way. And he was happy, you know, but he was good. So I said to they said, well, what do you like about Johnny Linehan? I said, he was a tough man, but you respected him, you know, and you treated him good. And in the old high school, where the lunchroom was, they used to get these lemon tarts and things there from Poyon's. And anyway, and they had the big pictures on the other side, and some of the kids would take them and kind of like a frisbee, you know. Well, he'd stand there without you knowing he was standing there, and somebody'd whip one, and you walk by it, and you grab it like that, and you whip it right back at you, and most of the time he got you. But I said at that thing there, I said, you think Larry Bird is the best basketball player in the world? They says, yeah. I said, well, you'll never see Johnny Linehan dribble you down a hall. But he was a good guy. In fact, I stopped by his house about a couple of years before he died. In the old training school and the old high school, they used to have these stools for the lunchrooms there. And when they threw them all away, and I lasted on about a dozen of them. And I kept them. And I gave one to a couple of my mother and everything. And I still got a couple at home anyway. I had one that was really, really good. So I swung by his house one day, and I knocked on the door. I said, I got a present for you. And he says, that came out of the high school, didn't it? And the old training school. I said, yeah. He says, let me have that. He grabs it by the leg like that. He goes, the good old days. He'd pick up that stool like that, and he'd threaten you with it, you know? Anyway, he says, I said, there's a present for you. You can leave it to your grandkids. So I got a letter from Maureen there, and thanks. Yeah, but it did come out of training school, so it must be about 100 years old. But,
Tell us about Brian Connor.
well, they call him Pop Connors, you know, nobody knows why, but he was about as tall as this thing was. And he was a rugged little guy. And you'd be doing something you weren't supposed to be doing, all of a sudden he'd pop up. So I think that's why they call him Pop Connors. But he was a good guy, he was another tough guy. But you treated you good. I mean, you treated him good, he treated you good, you know. But and his wife was nice. In fact, at our 25th reunion, he showed up there, you know. And he's going around looking at everybody and talking to everybody and telling everybody. He said this, I forgot what it was now. Anyway, he says, remember the time I was standing in the broom closet and you guys are putting the bad mouth on me? And I come out. He says, you look white as a ghost. But he was a good guy. Bill Naylor. And he was a good guy too, you know. And he was a quiet guy, but he was a rugged guy too. You know, he had quite a war record too, you know. And he never bothered nobody, but he'd walk down the desk between the desks going like that, and all of a sudden he'd stop and you get one of them behind the ear, and he just walk on, and you got the hint, you know. But and Bill Colville, we had him for math teacher. He was another big giant of a guy.
Yeah.
He didn't take no crap from anybody. In fact, when we were in school, we built that house for him on Marston's Ave.
Yeah.
And let's see what else. Well, and I went to the trade school part, so I had, I think Mr. Glover, old Tubby Glover was calling me. He was a nice old guy. He was a smart guy. He treated you good. I think one of the guys you really remember was Mr. Mitron. He used to, in the old high school, he'd teach woodworking. In the 7th grade, you have woodworking. In the 8th grade, you would have metalwork. And you'd teach you how to build something. And I still got some of that stuff on a candelabra at home and a scoop or something. And he taught that. Like Donnie Robinson, when he lived on Bourne Court, on the weekends, he'd walk through the woods there and go into the metal shop and fool around with the lathe and everything. And when he went in the Navy, he got out of the Navy as the youngest machinist mate they ever had. He could build anything. And that was just because of fooling around in the metal shop there. So, I mean, he did learn something, I don't know. I think we should have a mayor, I think. Then if you don't like what's going on, you can kick him out of office. But then again, I don't know. That's what everybody thinks. I don't know. I think they're running pretty good. There ain't nothing going to be perfect. The only trouble with the town is just the village mentality, And everybody's for their own little village, which is good in one way, but it's supposed to be a town,
It's been going on forever, hasn't it? Since 1639.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, years ago, you could see it because everything was separated, But now it's costing the town a lot of money. Just with the fire districts, you can see that. Well, we got the people for one thing. I mean, the people that, like Stanley McQueen, he's still there, 82 years old, still clipping hair. He says, I can run this best clip joint in town. He's on the same spot. And he's got his kid there in there working with him. So, I mean, he puts back in the town. And him and, I don't know, a few other people. I think the people, like everybody else says, the people. Cause, and there's the people you don't hear from that really are the ones that put in the town, the ones that just lay low and do what they do, I know they call it a city, but they still try to run it like Mayberry IFD, If they're going to call it a city, they should run it like a city, but they don't, There's too much, I don't know, like I say, the villages that thing there. A lot of people, I call them dog walkers. They live in another part of town, but they own businesses in Hyannis, and we got to put up with what they have. The traffic and noise and all that stuff, and they go home, Well, I give her that rocking chair for one thing, but she fought for what she wanted, and she stuck up for the poor people, even though she wasn't very poor herself. But that's another thing. I mean, you go down Oak Grove Cemetery, she's buried there, and nobody ever goes down there to see her. I was watching her, and she'd go like this, sitting, fidgeting and everything, and everybody up here in their nice big chairs, like, I forget who it was sitting there like some Mississippi lawyer, going like this, and I said, she should have a good chair, Then I was watching some TV show, and there was some black woman sitting in a rocking chair going back and forth, and every once in a while she'd stop and get up and say something. And so I said, I should see if I can find her a rocking chair, which I did. It was the best $69 I ever spent.
That chair now is in the museum.
Yeah, I'm the only white guy that's got his name on the wall in that place. Frank McKenna says to me, I was in there one day, he says, go over here and read that. He says, oh yeah. He says, that's quite an honor. I said, why is that? He says, look around. I said, you're the only white person that gets his name on the wall. I said, nothing wrong with that, I guess. But that chair has been good for the town because it's been in a lot of magazines, it's been on TV, it's been just about everywhere, and so that brings good things to the town. But and people go in that museum now and they look at it and they recognize it from Eugenia, being in the thing there. I bought that at a mill store for $69.
Village again.
Tom Holmes from Hyannis, Mass. C Street.